It is a big day for the Heroes Global Championship in North America, where we look to solidify the top and the bottom of the region, at least for the weekend. I'm Gillyweed here with Dreadnought. Dread, before we get to NA, we had some fantastic matches to close out the weekend in Europe.
Yeah, and even with some, crazy drafts from Dignitas specifically, seeing that Zul'jin, Sylvanas, Johanna composition.
Right.
It was really awesome to see that creativity.
Yeah, so many cool drafts, but we've been seeing a lot of cool drafts here in North America, and I expect nothing less from our next two matchups. We're going to take a look at the standings. We have had some crazy results so far in the series this weekend. Today we approach the top and the bottom of the standings. Tempo Storm sits with one win over Team 8, especially after Team 8 lost to Gale Force Esports. Tempo Storm is looking to further that as they will take on Team 8. We also will be looking at No Tomorrow and Team Naventic. Naventic wants to continue their climb and they will be facing off, but No Tomorrow does not want to stay in that bottom spot. For Tempo Storm, we heard from Caterpillar yesterday how important it is. They feel like it would be a disappointment if they're not able to claim the top spot, to continue to claim the top spot in Part 2.
And this is going to be the first step to make that happen. It's very important that if they want to hold that first place position to be able to not worry about the playoffs for the mid-season brawl, it's going to be very important for them to be able to take out Team 8 right now.
Yeah, and Team 8, of course, they want to redeem themselves for the match that they had versus Gale Force Esports, a tough 3-0 loss for them. But going up against Tempo Storm, it's not going to be easy. Let's take a look at where we started today after HGC Korea. Man, 3-2 matches where both Team Liquid and Team Dignitas, the expected results. But Playing Ducks and Team Expert brought it to their opponents. We'll be ending today with that banner matchup of Team 8 versus Tempo Storm. But we get started with No Tomorrow and Team Naventic. This could be another long day. Lots of games for us. The last time these two teams played, it went to full 5-game series with Team Naventic just barely getting the victory.
And according to the seeding, this would be the closest matchups, that we could possibly really get here in North America. And I think the coolest thing when looking at No Tomorrow and Naventic is that both, obviously, after looking at their performance in Part 2, they have made positive changes. So now it's who's going to come out on top between those two.
Well, let's get some words from our players, too, before we talk more about those improvements. Here is No Tomorrow versus Naventic.
Naventic's kind of our rival. Like, they're like a heavy practice partner for us, and we get along with them a lot, but we also like to talk trash back and forth, so I think Naventic would be our rival.
So, yeah, Tiger JK he's a pretty, I've talked with him a lot. I've been friends with him for a long time. Obviously, Erho and me have a long history together. We tried to build a team together, and then we played together on Bob Ross and Naventic for a while. He's a very strong mechanical player, in my opinion.
First of all, I have to just apologize for the way I acted previously that I was with the scene. I had a very negative personality, or people looked at me in a negative light because of my attitude. It's my goal now to show people that I'm actually not that person. I'm just a very passionate player. I need to channel that passion in a different way, in a way people can respect me and like me more as a person. So, like I said, my first thing is just to apologize to the members of Naventic and my team before for having such a bad outlash at the time.
Some very powerful words from Erho to apologize to the community, but specifically to his former teammates from Team Naventic, playing with them up through the Spring Global Championship of last year before he and the rest of the roster parted ways. It's very interesting to hear from him. We know that, again, there's been a lot of turmoil for No Tomorrow, but they showed a lot of improvements versus Tempo Storm yesterday. Things like pushing advantages with Merc camps, whatever advantages that they had. And talk about the Towers of Doom game. There was a point where it was 11-1, 10-1 in favor of No Tomorrow to win that game.
Yeah, they have definitely done a lot of things right after the break here in part number 2. It's just whether or not it continues, because that is the most painful thing for me, at least to be able to watch out of HGC North American teams, is they do have moments of greatness, I think, from every team that we have here. It's just how long does it hold? Freedom's a prime example of having a weekend or two where they just outperformed really what they were expected to make happen, and then it quickly crumbled. So which of these two teams, with the positive changes they made, will uphold?
Yeah, it's hard to give your heart to any team, right? Because you're like, I don't know if it's going to last. I want it to last. I believe in this team, but it is hard to give your heart over. And then we look at Team Naventic, where so many people have loved them for so long, are inveterate team fighters in Part 1, unwilling to really go into any sort of macro game, play the map, and then they were willing to do that and took a 3-0 victory over B-Step, who was sat much higher in the rankings.
Yeah, Naventic for me right now is the most impressive. I'm really thinking that I put them as probably the favorite in this matchup because just not only the players on the roster, but the performance that they had in their first part of part 2 was just amazing, honestly. It was a completely different team, and if they keep that going here, I very much feel like this could even be a 3-0 in their favor.
Well, it all starts with the Battleground. Let's check out the Battleground pool for HGC and see where we're going first. Both of these teams have some similar loves of Battlegrounds. So going to Tomb of the Spider Queen for game number 1, bans on Braxis and Warhead from both.
Tomb of the Spider Queen going to be a bit more focused onto the wave clear and the macro. It does seem like, in general, any 1-4 map is something that No Tomorrow really likes. It was the Dragonshire and then going into Tomb of the Spider Queen here as well. It just, that is where they feel the most comfort with their strategies, and I think it showed yesterday on Dragonshire versus Tempo.
Yeah, but this has historically been a Battleground that is Team Naventic is willing to play. They haven't had the best result, but what I like about this is that No Tomorrow takes us to Tomb first, but Dragonshire is still a possibility. So if that is still a plan and a favorite, going there once they have any sort of momentum over Naventic might be the plan that they have in mind.
Naventic with the ban on Malfurion. No Tomorrow, probable response is going to be the Tassadar. We know Tassadar's been a staple still, even after a large amount of adjustments or nerfs, depending on how you view it. He is received recently. But with the Malfurion ban, you automatically got a question, how high priority will the Lucio be for the side of Naventic?
Yeah, especially because on Tomb, Naventic were second pick. They chose this Battleground versus B-Step and won versus them there. And they picked and prioritized having Lucio Arthas, which both of those heroes have been climbing quite a lot. But to see, what do you think of seeing that kind of prioritization on those heroes from a team like Naventic? Does it once again show us like, hey, they're the team that is again looking at other metas?
I think that is a bit of it, yeah. They are, without a doubt, one of the most studious, I guess, of other regions at times. It's hit or miss. Sometimes I think they neglect it. Other times they heavily commit to studying around the world and what they see in those regions. And I personally love the prioritization. Arthas and Lucio are both at the top there. So there is going to be the Arthas. What do we see out of No Tomorrow? I would still, again, Lucio here I think would be very, very good. And then any kind of backliner or a front line if they feel like they're afraid to get choked out would be a really solid pickup here.
No Tomorrow favored a lot of Tychus, Dahaka focus, also Arthas. I think if these two scrim each other as much as we know that they did in part 1, we're going to see a lot of those kinds of heroes that both were favoring in their first matches rise. Especially, I think the Tychus is going to be, for me, a good indication of how much these two teams are scrimming because both had a lot of focus on him.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up because specifically for Naventic, they were the highest priority of Tychus out of any team that we've seen in HGC North America so far. And I think it makes a lot of sense, even with his nerfs, just based on how melee focused the meta kind of is, and he overall is such a powerful hero. But it's going to be the Zarya Vala, so kicking it a bit old school. It's unfair to call it old school because it's only like a month, but in the world of esports, that's kind of an eternity.
Unfortunately, this concerns me that No Tomorrow is willing to give Lucio and Arthas to Naventic so easily, but they have to have a game plan in mind because they have to know that that's going to be an instant pickup.
Yeah, it was too heavy of a trend out of Naventic in their first games here in opening week of part 2. Other thoughts on priority for Naventic? What backliner are they going to see? Nazebo was something that we already saw them use on Tomb of the Spider Queen and made it later into the draft, but they were also in a different pick order, which pushes it out. So is it going to be like a Lucio Nazebo in this rotation, or do they go a different direction? Off the top of my head, I think they would go the Tychus because that's the priority that we saw. And then into the... No, they pick it that high and into the Johanna.
Johanna. So they did this before on Tomb, getting both Arthas and Johanna, with Zuna playing Arthas, but... So interesting to see that they're willing to give up Lucio.
It's the same thing. I talked about it in day 1 and 2. It's just North America right now is in a position where they know that Malf and Lucio are a thing, but where nobody is in anywhere near agreement on where that ends up falling. Whereas Europe is kind of very different with the world of Lucio. He is sitting right at the top. And then Korea, we talked about this earlier today. It's a very hit or miss pick for them.
Yeah.
So for No Tomorrow in this position with a double warrior picked up, you aren't worried about that at all. You now have the option to choco whatever support you really feel like you want. If you don't want to play the Lucio, then you can rid of it right now and then pick up yours in the next rotation. It's very, very likely, though, that it's going to be either a form of support choke or concentration onto a backline they don't want to see. They go for the Greymane over the Tychus.
I think that means they want to take Tychus.
Take the Tychus themselves. Yeah, that's a very good point. And the removal of Ariel, showing afraid of the Zarya, Vala, Ariel trio. You know, the Trinity kind of shielder, a battery, and then Ariel, how impactful that has been historically. Yeah, I think, you know, I think you got it. It's got to be the Tychus, which is less appealing into the Johanna. But a Tychus Lucio transition here. But No Tomorrow didn't really, I don't know, their priority on them, was very interesting. Only on Sky Temple. And then they were more comfortable to pick Karazim over Lucio in both cases. In the first 2 maps, actually.
Yeah, and he wasn't picked up from Tempo either. Tempo had picked Malf on Dragonshire. That's I'm looking at the Dragonshire to give an indication maybe of what
it's the closest
here from No Tomorrow. What else do we know from No Tomorrow? Vala generally is played by Jason, and so is Tychus. So maybe we're going to see Gul'dan here instead, although Talking Trees has played a few Tychus, so it's still a possibility.
That
Leo
leans heavily towards, oh man. Gosh, that was a really interesting rotation coming out from him. Leoric rising up from the dead after the buffs that he's seen recently. Naventic, we expect, again, is going to be their opportunity to move into the Tychus here now. They picked Tychus sitting on the top half of the draft in almost every game, except for on Tomb. I guess it was in their last rotation, so they prioritized them a smidge lower here.
Do they still just then get Tychus Lucio?
I mean,
and it's the same draft, but in different priority?
Yeah, I mean, that's my thought. Yeah, it's the exact same draft, different priority, but I don't see any reason to really kind of mix it up. I do think that the Lucio would be the most valuable support in this position. Into a triple warrior, would there be an argument's sake into a Rhaegar? No. Maybe for the wave clear, but you have so much you shouldn't need that in a double front. So I would say it makes the most sense to move in that direction. We'll find out. Tychus.
And
same draft, different order.
Weird.
That is, I don't think I've ever seen that in my life.
One team, right? Didn't you say, I remember you telling me that sometimes MVP Black would purposefully.
Okay, they would, but only in the same rotation. They would pick the order of the heroes backwards to make you question.
So I see now.
Yeah, do you value, for instance, it would be like, well, there was the Nazeebo Johanna. They would pick Nazeebo Johanna, and every team prioritized it continuously, but they would go Johanna Nazeebo. And suddenly you go, are they looking for the synergy between the Johanna, or are they looking for the Nazeebo to keep people off track? But yeah, that is really, comfort across the board for Naventic, obviously picking the exact same draft, but the triple warrior with a Morales on the side of No Tomorrow, that is going to be a very difficult draft to be able to work. A late game is going to be an absolute terror. It's just how successful are they going to be in the early games. Leoric's going to be comfortable in the 1v1. Murden, Zarya, Vala will be decent in the 4-man, but it should struggle against Naventics.
What do you think about No Tomorrow's Lieutenant Morales? Because she has only been picked by No Tomorrow one time ever in HGC. It was not a win. Is this a full safety, can be able to sustain for days? We're going to go into medevac because there's a potential Arthas who's going to be diving the back line? Or is this more of a, I'm going to stim drone and full enable Vala?
I mean, you can always make the argument, well, in an ideal world, you can always move sim drone, right? But just realistically, it's so probable to get flanked at some point, especially with, it just takes one slow, Arthas is on top of you, you have nowhere to run. It makes the most sense to go into medevac, in my opinion, just for the safety net. Even if you never use it, it is worth the pickup over the sim drone. But they could say, we have so much soft supporting across the board, such a big front line and enough peel that I feel comfortable moving into sim drone to help the Vala.
Yeah, it might just depend where the game is at, honestly, when they hit 10. Well, we are ready for that game number 1. We are going to Tomb of the Spider Queen with No Tomorrow and Naventic.
On the left-hand side here is No Tomorrow. The Morales played by Tiger JK. Urho, as always, on the front line playing the Murden. Talking Trees on Zarya. Casanova is going to play the Leoric, and Jason on Vala.
And the members of Team Naventic, Kenma will be playing Lucio. B-Kid once again playing Johanna. Zuna switching over to this role, playing Arthas. Big Impact playing Nazebo. And finally playing Tychus will be Tomster.
And with knowing that Zuna has transitioned over towards this melee role for the team, that's secondary warrior, the secondary melee, his positioning was very good at flanking. Zuna has a very good game sense overall as a player, so when we were talking about the peel potential on the Morales and keeping her alive, I do think that Zuna will apply more than enough pressure onto Tiger JK to where that medevac will be that much more crucial.
Tiger JK seems to respect that possibility too, picking up Trauma Trigger at level 1. Kind of a talent that's fallen off in a lot of ways, favoring Scouting Drone mainly to be able to give vision, but in this case, trying to make sure that Lieutenant Morales can get her own safeguard should she fall below 50% health.
We do see a 3. Arthas is questioning if he can get the gank onto bottom. Tychus is going to be matched up into the 1v1 onto Leoric. Good stun here onto B-Kid. Has to drop Iron Skin and walk away. Tychus will be successful post 4 into the Leoric. Will really be able to trade well into him. Just the bigger they are, just rips through his self-sustain. But for now, the 4-man.
Oh, nice grenade from Tiger JK. Buys some extra time, extra damage for Zuna, but he gets back in time.
I did think Naventic would be more successful in this 4-man, having Johanna, Nazebo, Arthas, but they're playing so passive with the Arthas flank to try and gank on the bottom that they're essentially volunteering to not be as dominant in the 4-man out of need to be able to baby Tychus until 4. Post 4, I'd like to see Zuna joining. Sticking with the 4-man because it really increases their threat over No Tomorrow.
He also didn't pick Rhyme to get extra physical armor, instead wanting to make sure that he can beef up his Howling Blast with range, cooldown reduction later on, even being able to hit people in a line. There's a lot of line areas on Tomb of the Spider Queen, specifically around the bottom turn-in, that you can just blast it out once you've hit your 20 heroes.
I do think that we'll see that fall out in North America with time. I think in the long run,
presence?
we will see more Howling Blast spec into at level 1, I think, in the long run. But overall, the general consensus is kind of, again, a situational. I mean, we saw it with Lucio builds even in North America, where everybody kind of has their own perspective, but eventually everyone agrees on one, not only with the meta, but just talents as well. And I do feel that this level 1 Howling Blast talent is just unrivaled, really, at the level 1 mark.
And especially because once you beef it up, then pairing that with 13, being able to reduce armor to everyone hit.
Oh.
Speaking of reduced armor, Dwarf does right over in time to give just enough of an escape for Airho. No first blood yet.
Tiger JK getting a bit of a dismount attempt to make sure the turn-in completes. It very much will here. So 26 gems have been turned in for No Tomorrow. None for Naventic, even losing a bit on experience. Good stun coming off for Urho. The drain onto Tomster. It's not going to be enough to kill him.
He's trying to run up to his teammates right now. Can they get here in time? Kemba speeds in, giving heals, has a boop to get Tomster back in time, but Zuna still is on the retreat as well. Makes it back. Everyone stays alive in Naventic. Nice rotation to keep Tomster safe.
It does keep Tomster safe, but it did draw a lot of resources away from, again, focus on the map objective, allowing No Tomorrow to once again turn in more gems here, getting 38 up, 40 in the possession of Naventic. So when how many each team has, it's going to be pretty close to even. Urho not getting hit by the Howling Blast is going to survive.
Yeah, so Naventic have had a hard time trying to flank in a way that they're able to get kills or rotate in for those. We're going to have a pause from Talking Trees.
I do like to see, I talked about what Arthas' thought process should be after post 4. It does look like now that he has hit the 4 mark and knowing the matchup should be very good for Tychus. It's just a cooldown timing is all you have to do. It's nice to now see Zuna joining the 4-man. I think that was really smart play coming out from Naventic. Yeah,
we'll see if he continues that, though, now that there's been a gank attempt on Tomster. It does seem more like it should be on Tomster to just play back a little bit, play it safe. Know that there's always the possibility that people are looking to see if they can get him, because that is the issue when you're soloing with Tychus. We've even talked about that this weekend.
Yeah, is why do you have, ranged assassins versus melee assassins? What is the answer for that? And it's always when you have the range, they're more vulnerable to those ganks, and that's why you kind of got to baby them. They also have different power spikes usually than the melee characters. Those are more successful early game, whereas the ranged characters are almost always going to be talent dependent. You know, for instance, Falstad doesn't get hammer gains until 4 as well. He is not a good solo laner until that point. He really thrives once he gets boomerang, because then he just one-shots the minion wave practically, gets a little bit of self-sustain, and he can trade well into most matchups.
Well, thank you guys for your patience. We have a sound issue for one of the players. Don't forget, this is No Tomorrow versus Team Naventic. Such an important match for both of these teams. Both of them in the bottom 2 of the standings by the end of part 1. Team Naventic had a great 3-0 victory over B-Step. They want to continue that weekend, the strong weekend, so that they can pull themselves out, start the mountain climb that they need to make sure they're not in those bottom 2 spots by the time this part 2 ends.
But the positive things that we saw out of the first performance for both these teams is still showing. You know, No Tomorrow is really, playing this early game significantly better than I expected them to, and then we still see the rotations out of Naventic. They're innovative. They're thinking about what their strategy is going to be, and they're trying to execute it properly, it's just really nice to be able to see these changes from these teams, and that it's still carrying over to the next day, depending the results.
Yeah, so far maybe a slight favor for No Tomorrow, only that they've been able to draw some resources away.
Yeah.
Which, again, that's one of the improvements we commented on for No Tomorrow, even versus Tempo Storm. If you remember the very first game, Dragonshire, Kilthos was picked. Everyone from Tempo Storm had a predictable just run in, trying to see if they could grab anyone from the gate, but only one person showed at the gate, and everyone else from No Tomorrow came up underneath the lane. So very cool that they're continuing this trend. We'll see if it nets, who it nets the first kill. We're ready to head back into the game.
So back in action. Enough gems in the hands of No Tomorrow if they manage to get the turn-in. Same with Naventic. Here's going to be a channel attempt on bottom. Beautiful zone for Big E. Nobody's going to get it. Zuna got the peel, but it might cost him his life. My goodness, that grenade from Tiger JK. Urho goes in, and that is the first kill of the game. No Tomorrow. Beautiful setup there from Tiger JK.
Even a pre-safeguard on Airho just in case the collapse was happening for more damage to make sure that he could run away since he wanted to dwarf toss in. So the teammates playing in great synergy so far from No Tomorrow. They'll get first blood, and it's looking more and more like they'll get the first turn into Airho with the Stormbolt to guarantee Tiger JK puts a few more gems in the pockets of the Spider Queen.
Yeah, one staggered death on heavy laning maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen and Dragonshire really can set a team back. And No Tomorrow is doing their best to try and capitalize on this. They aren't ridding of the minion waves. Usually that's the first plan, is you kill the minion waves, then you force your opponent to choose, do you stop the turn-in or do you lose out on experience? And there we see it here in the top lane. And it looks like it's going to work out for now. Another displacement grenade to zone. It's going to net a turn-in here. No Tomorrow showing signs of life here in game number 1.
And that Death Coil was almost in time to stall it, but not quite. So now Naventic must defend versus the Web Weavers of No Tomorrow. Nazeebo has changed over to the bottom lane to be up against Leoric, who will be trying to solo push with that. And No Tomorrow, with all of the pressure that they've been able to put on, especially with this Zarya Vala lane here in the mid, they've already taken out a tower and almost a second one too, so we'll see how much more they can get than maybe even a normal Web Weaver phase.
Yeah, they should be extremely dominant. You know, Nazeebo is not going to do well into the Leoric here, and the fact that they have this much pressure on the mid, No Tomorrow is doing all things right with their laning-focused draft to be able to get such a big lead that Naventic doesn't really have the tools to be able to come back.
Now, Arthas had almost solo cleared the top, but now he has to run in. Stormbolt hits, but he used Icebound Fortitude in time to make that shorter. Zuna runs back to safety just in the nick of time and had cleared. So only one fort down. It's still quite a lot to get with the first Web Weaver phase, but it's thanks to the earlier pressure they had. Naventic want to try to get a fight, want to try to get kills before No Tomorrow gets to level 10.
Zero pressure on the Tiger JK allows them to heal everybody up. Casanova did make the rotation out where Nazeebo has actually kept himself in the mid. So 5-man rotated for No Tomorrow. Nothing to be gained, nothing to be lost for now, as they are going to be able to get the 10 advantage over Naventic, but the turn-in is going to be so far away that Naventic should be able to hit that 10 spike and opportunity to stack a double turn-in. So it's going to be very crucial that No Tomorrow not only gets the 10, but then gets the next turn-in and then looks for some kills to rid of those gems that is stacking up on the side of Naventic.
There's 10, no position just yet. Kenma is the one who's in trouble. Strafe immediately comes out, as well as Expulsion Zone to zone Lucio up through the pathway. And No Tomorrow using these heroic abilities, they're going to just siege down knowing they have 10. They can hold off on getting a turn-in for now.
That was I mean, really well done by No Tomorrow, capitalizing on the misplay of Kenma. You can respect Kenma's ability to go in there and try and, you know, set his team up for a play, but not having the heroics there is just a little bit too much to try and ask for here for the team, and enough gems for a turn-in as well. No Tomorrow is in a prime position to snowball this game.
But they are sieging heavily in the top lane first, again, taking full advantage of heroic abilities, trying to put some damage on the towers even too. And yeah, they're going to back off in time, now move straight to a turn-in point and get those web weavers.
So why you do exactly what we just saw in No Tomorrow, it's a perfect min-maxing situation. Because the web weavers take so long to like actually spawn and move through the lane, that would give Naventic enough time to be able to hit the 10. So while you have that small advantage, you go up to the front wall, you get as much free damage as you can, then you back out to get the turn in, and then look, they get the 10 spike, but you are in a position where you gain something with that advantage rather than just waiting for your web weavers to move in. It was just very smart play, and again showing a new leaf here for No Tomorrow.
Yeah, really, really well done from No Tomorrow. They are in the lead over Team Naventic, who, again, we felt were favored in this series. But, of course, it is simply game number 1. There is so long to go before you can actually claim the win.
Suna with the
looking
flank.
For the flank. Howling Blast on trees. Follow-up, Zombie Wall 2.
Kenma's stuck in there as well, though. Takes a chunk of his damage. Casanova with that Entomb is breaking it down, is going to be Kenma, but big impact gets taken out there on the Nazebo. No Tomorrow is not done as Zuna is going to get stunned out. Big Condemn comes in. But Arthas barely eking away with his life. The nade once more, and that is 2 kills here for No Tomorrow.
Make it a third as Lucio goes down. Again, No Tomorrow catches Kenma. Trees' positioning. I was like, oh, that looks scary, but man, in a position to get the grenade, still keeping the heals up too, wanting to chase. He did end up getting medevac dropship, so still playing it safe, having the safe play, despite being now massively ahead of Team Naventic. 13-10, and with web weavers still on the board, No Tomorrow has every advantage going into this mid-game.
Yeah, this is just very impressive performance coming out from them. And there's not much that Naventic really can do for some time here. Once the web weavers are going to be cleared out, we can double check their gem status. I do believe they have enough for 1 turn-in on the side of Naventic, not enough on the side of No Tomorrow. So if they can get 1 pick on just a B-Kid, holding those 58, that would be a colossal setback for Naventic. That is going to be the primary focus here with that 13 Talontier advantage.
Nice little dodge from Jason to stop and not get caught by Howling Blast. No Tomorrow continues to siege, wanted to finish getting both of those towers, but Johanna is sneaking in. B-Kid's looking for it. Web Weavers will stave off some of this pressure from No Tomorrow and help Naventic get back in.
Now you have to look at what is Naventic actually going to gain with this objective. They are so far behind that it's merely a buy time tactic, but there is a question on whether or not is the best time to buy time. So Gilly, we're going to take a minute to think about all the Talontier fights that you would want to take a disadvantage into post 10. What is the most probable?
13.
So then why would you try and buy time on the Talontier to where you are you're never going to catch
No Tomorrow?
You're
allowing your opponents to get to the scarier one, which is 16.
Exactly, which is why you should actually force that fight, then risk the turn in afterwards. I understand and respect it, but all Naventic can do now is literally draw aggro from No Tomorrow, but never commit to the fight itself. Is the best interest. But the fact that No Tomorrow is just ripping through these web weavers, it just, again, is only hurting Naventic here. And so just buy a little bit of time if you're No Tomorrow, rid of the web weavers. They're going to force it without the 13 talents here.
Casanova's walking in. He's going to separate from the side. Expulsion Zone 2. Entomb onto the Odin, which was dropped for Tychus. Tom's still in the back, though, can throw out the damage. Sound barrier from Kenma. Lieutenant Morales taken out. This might be the start of the comeback of this game for Naventic.
That was what they needed. There goes the Condemn. Leoric not going to be able to Wraith Walk out of this. Tomster on that Odin doing so much damage. Going to be able to get this fort as well. Frozen Waste finish there for Zuna. Going to be able to disable so much of not only mobility but damage coming out from No Tomorrow now with that being stacked up. Naventic is coming back. They can double turn in here, and that should be able to catch them up in the experience. But that was the exact win I was talking about for No Tomorrow, the one that you do not really need to risk, just rid of the map objective, then focus on the plays afterwards. And this is, you know, Naventic completely capitalizing on that misplay.
And Casanova Wraith walked in, and he had Tychus, who was a great target for Entomb, but everyone else from No Tomorrow was so away from him too that it was very hard for them to focus, and so then he just had to kind of turn around, and then from that just took a whole bunch of damage. Lieutenant Morales got caught that time too, so Naventic making the adjustments in the team fights to try to get back into this. They need to do as much as they can now with this Web Weaver phase 2 because No Tomorrow is ever approaching those level 16 talents.
Yeah, and when they pick that up, they should look to hard engage as fast as possible. Naventic should, again, try to be like, hey, look at us, pay attention to us in whatever lane we're at, but not actually risk the fight. I call that keeping them busy is generally the tone that you should be having. It's looking for any kind of pick like this. Casanova, Wraith walks around, did a little ring around the rosy there, and found a Zuna on the other end of it. But 16 will be achieved. Leoric will be back here in about 20 seconds.
Yeah, they have to watch his positioning too because he has the possibility of getting the money into him once he pops back out of that. So Naventic have some time, but need to be watching that health bar.
Yeah.
Casanova's getting closer. 16 is here. He's on the chase.
They realize it. They're trying to get the retreat. Their movement speed from Kenma, gonna amp it up. They want nothing to do with that ghost coming back to life. And now we do see the Web Weaver should be cleared out here. Naventic has managed to, off that one play, the double turn-in, catch up in experience and set this to a near even game.
The nice thing is they took down the fort in top, which means either way a boss is a possible keep for either team depending on who can get it. We'll have to look at the gym gem count though for No Tomorrow since a lot was used to be able to get the double turn in.
Urho there for a moment thought that Dwarf Toss might cost him his life. Good frost shots there coming out from Vala, slowing after Kenma drops that movement speed. 55 gems, so No Tomorrow is going to try and force this turn in. Question is whether or not Naventic lets them have it or if they're going to be able to win that team fight. This is, tense moment here if you're No Tomorrow because the last couple of minutes have been going against them. It's kind of a moment where you go, do we have the advantage still?
Naventic are baiting the boss too. They're trying to run up, see if anybody checks. They do. It's Casanova who's going to get blasted before he can Wraith walk away. Now Arrow, Dwarf Toss out inside, out of the Condemn, but not out of Blessed Shield.
But
Arrow now in trouble.
He should be able to survive on his own with that Avatar dropped. He has Dwarf Toss in a bit, but that zombie wall, there it is. Now he's going to be back. So that what did that cost the teams here? We saw Gargantuan and Blessed Shield on the side of Naventic. Avatar, Expulsion Zone, and then Leoric's life, but he's going to be back quickly here. So a trade, what's probably going to hurt No Tomorrow, making Urho significantly weaker.
Yeah, the Avatar. Expulsion Zone's all fast, so is Gargantuan's pretty fast. Blessed Shield is very fast. Entomb hits Zuna, immediate zombies as well. Army of the Dead, once again, Casanova constantly having trouble with this damage from Tomster as he chases down No Tomorrow, but they're getting ready to turn back around.
That sound barrier is a couple seconds too late there. They're going to try and take that fight, and now it's going to be completely wasted. No Tomorrow now looking to aggress, realizing that that's a cooldown that they think they can win the fight without. No pressure onto Tiger JK yet with that healing beam. It's still Expulsion Zone splitting Beacon. Iron Skin, will the Stormbolt land? Nope. Kenma with a good boop. Howling Blast as well. Everything was used, even Blessed Shield.
It feels like No Tomorrow is having such a hard time being able to chase down Team Naventic with this movement speed that Lucio's giving, unless Entomb's there.
Surprise!
Yeah.
It's hard to chase a Lucio comp. Never would have guessed. It's almost as hard as a Medivh comp, right? Just the teleporting mobility of the squad is realistically, you just are not going to get those type of fights without a colossal flank onto somebody. Another thing with Naventic is I talked about how Zuna needs to be the one getting the flank, but B-Kid is often the one coming around from the side. And let's be honest, a Condemn and slap with the shield is really not nearly as terrifying as that huge, scary Ice King. You know, the damage output, the lack of mobility, everything about it is more intimidating. Oh, Zuna sniffed out. Entomb not going to be dropped. All right. So Web Weaver's pushing in here. Naventic is all responding to this push on the bottom. The flank coming out from members of No Tomorrow. This could be really bad for Naventic.
Entomb is on B-Kid only.
Tree's way out of position.
Difference of who they want to go after now. B-Kid's going to make it out. Casanova's still chasing, slowing. Zuna running. Drops Army of the Dead even.
This is worst case scenario for Naventic here. After pushing out there, they needed to look for either instantly winning that fight or then backing out the moment they sniffed it out to rid of the Web Weaver up on top and bottom, because it was a buy time game. These mid-tier Web Weavers in the middle of the game really are just more of, if we can get you off of them, they will gain a lot of value, and can we capitalize on your poor rotations? No Tomorrow gets the first keep of the game here, 16.5 minutes in. Looks like Naventic's going to try and force.
Yeah, can Casanova and Airho buy time for the rest of the team to get away? Tiger JK is under damage from Big Impact and B-Kid. Expulsion Zone to help. Medevac dropship saves the day for now. Entomb on a lot of the members. 2 of the members. Lucio down. Big E uses Ice Block into shielding the healing of No Tomorrow. Barely. They're going to lose Casanova, but they keep everyone else alive.
Tiger JK though, Odin. Tomster dishes out the damage, so they actually go even in this 2-for-2. Nazebo scaling it out, showing how much damage output he can have. Jason is trying to turn it around, gets blinded. B-Kid.
Spiders.
And they get it.
Death by spiders is no way to go, as Jason found out. So at the end of the day, Team Naventic walks away with the victory in the team fight, but has lost 1 keep and 1 is all but gone.
Where is No Tomorrow? Going to go after this with so much loss. Naventic here has enough for a turn-in, but on their side, they don't have anything close to it. Turn-ins and bosses are really, outside of a 5-man wipe, the only win condition typically on Tomb of the Spider Queen. So really, it's they're the ones with the worst positioning here. I know that seems weird to say, considering they have the keep up, but the fact that they are even in experience, and there is a turn-in available for Naventic, and nobody's got a huge boss advantage, this is a moment where Naventic might be able to turn around just a couple of picks, and that could be game.
Yeah, nobody is here to stop this turn-in either. Tomster is completely zoned, and Tomb's not going to catch anybody. The red Web Weavers will descend. Zuna making sure to clear out this mid.
Naventic, not like this. They have to be going top. The fact that they're backing out and clearing mid and bottom, top is the only wave where they can pressure it out and look to be able to at least get a keep and then bait a boss play afterwards to try and force it if they don't win the game with this turn-in. So that is the next go-to strategy. But because they went through bottom and now through mid, it's very easy. You saw No Tomorrow instantly go top, expecting that to be the rotation. And so without that being prepped, this is going to be a lot easier of a clear for No Tomorrow. Now making that turn-in significantly weaker. Urho taking a lot of damage. Interrupt there onto the Dwarf Tusk. Can they get the pick? It's going to force the Avatar, and now getting this fight is everything Naventic wanted.
Yep, they want to delay No Tomorrow from being able to defend. Howling Blast does not connect a shield to allow Airho to Dwarf Toss over the wall. No Tomorrow gets back. Naventic are watching the top Web Weaver get closer and closer to the top keep. They're keeping all of No Tomorrow here, sieging along with Odin.
Yeah, it's got a lot of poke there onto Jason, but Tiger JK is where we need to look at the pressure. Sound Barrier drop once more after a huge Entomb from Casanova, but nobody really looked to be able to do the damage, so that's going to be 20 more seconds for that up.
Yeah, he has Bossa Nova, so it does reduce the cooldown.
So he does have the upgrade there. He can kind of leisurely throw it out there. We'll see if they push up. This is exactly what I was talking about with those Web Weavers. Now what is Naventic going to do? Bottom, there's no way that gets value into a Catapults. Catapults just counter it directly. So that Web Weaver, even with babying the lane, just did not do anything the entire time. Top is the best because if you get that keep, you pressure in and then you pull away. They rid of that top Web Weaver last, and then bam, you've got yourself a boss bait. But instead now, they have all transitioned towards bottom, and No Tomorrow is kind of questioning if they should take the boss. Naventic's shown 3 on bottom. They commit.
Committing to boss, but that allows Naventic to continue to siege bottom.
They're going to lose. They can't.
They're going to go straight into core.
They're baiting it.
But medevac.
Only one got in the medevac, though. That's a fake medevac. So they're still on the boss. No, they all pulled away. The mind games. Now, there's 3. Oh, gosh, they realized there's 3. Naventic goes in.
Leoric and Trees, Casanova. Yalmurid and Vala are backing.
They're trying to back. Zuna takes a lot of damage. Odin's going to drop. The shields is already removed. 90%. Do they have the damage here?
Oh,
Tomster.
Here comes the missiles. Tychus is ripping through the cords at 50%. 3 down, though, for Naventic.
They can't.
It's just Arthas and Johanna.
They don't have the damage. Even Indestructible's not enough. Zuna has so much of their damage, and that is it. 10%, 9. They don't have the tools. The shielding 6, 5, 4. No, they can't.
Not like this.
The mind games that just happened here.
Oh my god.
We're insane.
And well, we're gonna just medevac on over.
And that is going to be it. No Tomorrow here with the aggressive boss called. Naventic realizing the circumstances, moving up to the core, trying to play with them a little bit there. No, everyone played that near perfectly up until the full commit onto the core, and that was a risk Naventic was 3% away from getting right and wrong.
Yeah. Or, well, not even committing. They committed. That might have been the issue. Just a little bit. No Tomorrow, Team Naventic, both showing their improvement so far in part 2, but No Tomorrow will walk away with the victory here in game number 1, but I think we're going to have a series on our hands.
I very much agree. After watching that performance, honestly, out of No Tomorrow, I really like their drafting a lot. A lot of the tools that they had. I always talk about Johanna and Double Warrior and how crippling I feel like that is even with an Arthas. So I do like the draft that No Tomorrow had over Naventic, and I'm really thinking that if they clean up like that 13 fight, suddenly this is a very easy game for No Tomorrow. And that's something I never thought would happen.
Yeah, what a game we had on Tomb of the Spider Queen. We'll have to wait and see what our next Battleground is going to be. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have game number 2 between Team Naventic and No Tomorrow.